Hi, Mr. Harris. My name is Kayla Britton, and I decided to do my research paper over the two stories we read from Edgar Allan Poe, the Cask of Amontillado and The Telltale Heart. Both are from like the Gothic horror literary genre that he is very well known for. So when I was reading them, I noticed that they both had a lot of similarities, such as the use of irony, their theme, the dark tone that they both had, the diction that the two narrators spoke in, and their symbolism, which was basically used kind of to provide motive for the actions of the narrators. So what I did was I wanted to explain how those elements collectively worked together to create this hauntingly memorable experience for the reader. So moving on into it, I did start with giving just a brief biography of Edgar Allan Poe. He was orphaned at the age of 2. He was the second child of 2 actors. I believe his mother died. It was speculation of like tuberculosis, and his dad had abandoned him like a year before that happened. So he was adopted by the Allens and went to school. He had debt from school and gambling debt, so he stopped going there. I believe he was in the army briefly, and then after that, he finally found his passion. I believe he always had a passion for writing, but he actually started to put it to use after that by being a magazine writer, and which led to him getting a job of like critiquing different literary works. So that's kind of in a nutshell Edgar Allan Poe. So after that, starting with irony, both stories have irony in them. The Cask of Amontillado, the names are actually where you see the irony in that story. Fortunato is actually the unfortunate victim that Montresor kills, and he says, well, his reason behind killing him is the simple fact that he said that he's insulted him way too many times. And you see from that explanation, he's insane, which is very similar to the narrator in The Telltale Heart, who from the jump you see he's insane. He has a weird obsession with this man and his eye, which he calls evil eye, and he basically kills the man for that reason. As far as there's another thing that was ironic in the Cask of Amontillado, when they were actually talking about the Masons. When Fortunato asked him about asked Montresor about the Masons, and he said, "Yes, indeed, I am one." He wasn't talking about the secret society brotherhood. He was actually talking about the bricklaying, which would come into play later when he actually buried Fortunato alive by bricking him into this space. As far as irony in The Telltale Heart, it was very ironic that at the end, the narrator, who is nameless, he ends up thinking he hears the dead man who he killed. He thinks he hears his heart. And so it's like so loud and overbearing that he feels that the police, who are not even onto him, he feels that they're going to hear it. And so he just tells on himself. Very ironic and a little funny that he just blurts out and tells on himself when they weren't even on to him. Moving on into theme, the basic overall theme that I went with, because they both have a lot of different themes that are similar, but the one that I went with to talk about in my research paper was the dissension into doom. Because in the Cask of Amontillado, the whole journey throughout the whole story, you're descending into Montresor's vault. And although Fortunato doesn't know, but it's ultimately to his doom, which is, his fate to die. And in the Telltale Heart, I saw dissension where, you have the narrator and he's fixated on this man's eye and he becomes obsessed with it, and then he lets his hatred for the man's evil eye, it just descends and it keeps getting worse and worse until it basically takes over his mind, and he's, not thinking rationally, and he is irrational in killing the man. As far as the tone of both of them, it's dark, mysterious. It's told in first person limited, which really gives the reader a chance to be inside the two narrators' minds. And I did like the fact that Edgar Allan Poe gave the perspective of the killer instead of the victim, because a lot of times we always get the perspective of the victim, but this was kind of cool to get the perspective of the killer, even though they were crazy. And it was kind of weird to be inside a crazy person's head, because they both thought that they were justified actually in what they were doing. And so I just think that he did an awesome job in taking those elements, bringing them together, and giving us an awesome horror story. And you have a good night.